The silence of dawn hung heavy over the modest ranch house as Olivia Daniels rocked gently on the weathered porch swing, her arms wrapped around the empty space where a child should have been. The miscarriage had happened 3 months ago, but the hollow ache in her chest felt as fresh as the morning dew that clung to the tall prairie grass surrounding her homestead near Vulture City, Arizona Territory, 1885. The doctor had been kind but blunt. This had been her third loss, and at 26, her chances of carrying a baby to term were dwindling. The news had shattered something fundamental between her and Wade Yates, the man she'd married with such hope 4 years earlier. He'd thrown himself into ranch work, riding out before dawn and returning long after dusk, the space between them growing wider with each passing day. Olivia stared at the horizon, watching the sun climb over the distant mountains. The homestead they'd built together suddenly felt too big, too empty. A home meant for a family that might never come. The sound of hoofbeats broke through her thoughts. Wade was returning earlier than usual, his tall frame silhouetted against the morning light as he guided his chestnut stallion toward the barn. She didn't call out to him. These days, words seemed to get tangled between them, each syllable a reminder of what they'd lost. After tending to his horse, Wade emerged from the barn and paused, his eyes finding her on the porch. For a moment he just stood there, hat in hand, the morning breeze ruffling his dark hair. Then, with deliberate steps, he approached the house. He climbed the 3 porch steps slowly, as if giving her time to retreat inside if she wished. When she remained in place, he settled beside her on the swing, the wood creaking beneath his weight. "You're home early," Olivia said, her voice barely audible above the gentle squeak of the swing's chains. "Couldn't concentrate," Wade replied, his gaze fixed on the distant hills. His hands, rough from years of ranch work, fidgeted with the brim of his hat. "Been thinking too much lately." Olivia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The weight of all they'd lost pressed down on her chest, making each breath a conscious effort. "I saw Mrs. Peterson in town yesterday," Wade continued, his deep voice gentle. "She asked after you. I suppose everyone knows by now." Olivia's fingers tightened around her arms. "Everyone knows the Yates can't have children." Wade turned to her then, his blue eyes meeting hers directly for the first time in weeks. "That's not what they're saying, Liv. It doesn't matter what they're saying, it's the truth, isn't it?" The words came out sharper than she intended, laced with the bitterness she'd been trying to swallow. Wade set his hat on the porch floor and reached for her hand. When she didn't pull away, he threaded his fingers through hers. The familiar calluses of his palm against her skin sent a jolt of longing through her body, not just for physical touch, but for the easy companionship they'd once shared. "I miss you," he said simply, the words hanging in the air between them. Olivia felt tears gathering behind her eyes and blinked rapidly to hold them back. "I'm right here. Are you?" Wade's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "Because I've been feeling mighty alone these past months, and I reckon you have too." A single tear escaped, trailing down her cheek. "I failed you." Wade's hand tightened around hers. "Don't you ever say that again." His voice was firm but gentle. "You haven't failed anyone, least of all me. 3 babies, Wade, 3 chances at a family, and I couldn't." Her voice broke. "I couldn't keep any of them safe." Wade released her hand, but only to wrap his arm around her shoulders, drawing her close against his side. "You listen to me now, Olivia Yates. Those losses weren't your doing, and they don't change how I feel about you. Not one bit." "But the family we planned, I still see it," Wade interrupted, his voice steady and sure. "I still see the family we dreamed of." Olivia pulled back slightly, searching his face for any sign of platitude or hollow comfort. She found none, only the honest, open expression of the man she'd fallen in love with years ago. "How can you still see it?" she whispered. "After everything," Wade's eyes held hers, unwavering, "because family isn't just about having children of our own blood. It's about love, about building something together." "What are you saying?" Wade took a deep breath. I'm saying there are other ways to fill this home with the family we've been dreaming of, and I'm asking if you're willing to consider them with me." A flicker of something not quite hope, but perhaps its distant cousin sparked in Olivia's chest. What other ways? There are children who need homes live, orphans from the war, from illness, from misfortune, children who need exactly what we have to give. Olivia sat very still, allowing his words to sink in. The idea wasn't entirely foreign. She'd heard of such arrangements, of course, but to actively seek it out, to open their home and hearts to a child not born of their bodies. It was a path she hadn't allowed herself to contemplate. "And if we took in such a child," she asked cautiously, "would they truly be ours?" Wade nodded, his expression serious. "In every way that matters, maybe not by blood but by choice, and sometimes that bond runs deeper." Olivia glanced at the empty rocking chair beside them on the porch, the one Wade had crafted by hand when they'd first learned she was expecting. It had stood empty for too long. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm still mourning." "I know you are, I am too." Wade reached up to tuck a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "I'm not suggesting we make any decisions today. Just that we start talking again, start thinking about the future instead of dwelling on what we've lost." Olivia leaned into his touch, allowing herself to draw strength from his steady presence. "I've missed you too," she whispered. "More than I can say." They sat in silence for a long moment, the gentle creaking of the porch swing the only sound between them. Then Wade spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. That was our promise to each other, wasn't it?" Olivia nodded, remembering the words they'd exchanged on their wedding day, standing beneath the cottonwood tree behind the small church in town. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, vows that had seemed romantic and distant then, but which had been tested sorely in the years since. "Together," she agreed softly. Wade pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "That's all I needed to hear." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Olivia felt something shifting within her, not healing exactly, for that would take far longer, but perhaps the first tentative step toward it. The arms that had felt so empty still ached, but as Wade held her close on the porch swing, she allowed herself to imagine, just for a moment, that they might someday hold a child again. The next morning, Olivia rose earlier than usual. Wade was already gone, having mentioned the night before that he needed to ride out to check on a section of fence along their property's northern border. She dressed quickly and set about preparing breakfast, finding comfort in the routine of it. As she worked, she found herself glancing repeatedly at the calendar hanging by the kitchen window. 3 days until the monthly town gathering, an event she had been avoiding since the loss of their third baby. The thought of facing the community's well-meaning sympathy and curious glances made her stomach knot with anxiety, yet Wade's words from yesterday echoed in her mind. If they were to consider opening their home to a child in need, they would need the support of their community. Hiding away on the ranch wouldn't help them build the future they both longed for. With sudden resolve, Olivia decided she would accompany Wade to town on Saturday. It was a small step, but an important one. By mid-morning, she had finished her indoor chores and moved to the vegetable garden at the side of the house. Kneeling in the soft earth, she carefully tended the sprouting plants, finding solace in the simple act of nurturing life. "Mrs. Yates." Olivia startled at the voice, looking up to find Sarah Jenkins, their closest neighbor's daughter, standing at the garden gate. At 16, Sarah was tall and gangly, her blonde hair pulled back in a neat braid. "Sarah, good morning." Olivia brushed the dirt from her hands and stood. "Is everything all right?" Sarah nodded, fidgeting with the handle of the basket she carried. "Ma sent me over with some of her sourdough bread. She said to tell you she's been thinking of you." The simple kindness brought a lump to Olivia's throat. Eleanor Jenkins had been a steady presence in Olivia's life since she and Wade had settled on their ranch, offering practical help and quiet support through each pregnancy and subsequent loss. "That's very kind. Please thank her for me." Olivia accepted the basket, breathing in the familiar yeasty scent of fresh bread. "Would you like to come in for some lemonade?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "If it's not too much trouble." Inside the kitchen, Olivia poured 2 glasses of lemonade and cut thick slices of Aliner's bread, spreading them with butter and honey. As they sat at the kitchen table, Sarah seemed uncharacteristically subdued. "Is everything all right at home?" Olivia asked. Sarah nodded quickly. "Yes, madam." "It's just—" She traced a pattern on the wooden tabletop with her fingertip. "I heard about what happened with the baby." Olivia's hand tightened around her glass. "I see." "I'm sorry," Sarah rushed on. "I didn't mean to upset you, it's just, I wanted to tell you something." Olivia took a steadying breath. "What is it?" "My aunt, my father's sister, she lost 4 babies before they took in my cousin Thomas." Sarah's words tumbled out quickly. "He came to them when he was just 2 years old after his parents died of fever. And now he's 17 and about to start at the university in Denver, and Aunt Martha says he's the greatest blessing of her life." Olivia sat very still, struck by the coincidence of Sarah's story after yesterday's conversation with Wade. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked softly. Sarah flushed. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. It's just, when I heard Ma talking to Pa about what happened, I thought of Aunt Martha and Uncle John and how happy they are now, even though they were so sad before Thomas came to them." Olivia reached across the table and squeezed the girl's hand. "You didn't overstep, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that with me." Relief washed over Sarah's face. "So you're not angry?" "No," Olivia assured her. "Not at all." After Sarah left, Olivia found herself standing in the doorway of the small room they had prepared as a nursery. She hadn't entered it since the doctor had confirmed her 3rd miscarriage. Unable to face the carefully painted walls and the small crib Wade had crafted by hand. Now, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the curtains. The room was exactly as they had left it, hopeful, waiting, incomplete. Her fingers trailed over the smooth wooden rail of the crib. Could this room still serve its purpose, even if the child who occupied it didn't share their blood? The question lingered in her mind as she carefully opened the window to let in fresh air, then began to dust the furniture that had stood untouched for too long. When Wade returned late that afternoon, he found Olivia sitting on the porch steps, a piece of paper and pencil in hand. "What are you working on?" he asked, settling beside her after removing his dusty hat. "A list," Olivia replied, showing him the paper where she'd written questions about adoption at the top. "I thought we should find out more about how these things work, who to talk to, what's involved." Wade's eyes widened slightly, then softened with understanding. "You're considering it, then?" "I'm thinking about it," she corrected gently. "Sarah Jenkins came by today with bread from her mother. She told me about her cousin who was adopted after her aunt lost several babies." Wade nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. "Sounds like Providence might be sending us some signs." "Perhaps," Olivia acknowledged, "but I want to be sure, Wade, this isn't something to rush into because we're grieving." "Of course not." Wade took her hand, his expression serious. "We take all the time you need. I'm glad to see you looking forward again." Olivia leaned against his shoulder. "I was thinking we might go into town for the gathering on Saturday. We could speak to Reverend Collins, see if he knows anything about how these arrangements typically work." "That sounds like a fine idea," Wade agreed. "And it'll be good for us both to reconnect with folks." That night, for the first time in months, Olivia didn't turn away when Wade reached for her in bed. Their lovemaking was gentle, almost tentative, as they relearned the contours of each other's bodies and hearts. Afterward, lying in the circle of his arms, Olivia felt the first fragile tendrils of hope taking root within her. "I love you," Wade murmured against her hair. "Whatever comes next, that won't ever change." Olivia pressed closer against him, drawing strength from his steady heartbeat. "I love you too." Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. Olivia stood before the mirror in their bedroom, smoothing the fabric of her best dress, a deep blue cotton that Wade had always said brought out the color of her eyes. She pinned her auburn hair into a neat arrangement and added a small cameo brooch at her throat. "You look beautiful," Wade said from the doorway, already dressed in his good shirt and vest. Olivia managed a small smile. "I'm nervous." "I know." Wade crossed the room to stand behind her, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders, "but we'll be together." The ride into Vulture City took just under an hour. As they approached the settlement, Olivia felt her anxiety mounting. The town had grown considerably in the 5 years since they'd settled in the area, with the silver mines bringing prosperity and new families to the previously sleepy settlement. Main Street was busy with Saturday traffic wagons and horses tied up outside the general store. Groups of men gathered in conversation near the saloon, women and children moving between shops. Wade drove their wagon to the hitching post outside the mercantile and helped Olivia down. "Mrs. Yates. How lovely to see you in town." Olivia turned to find Margaret Wilson, the storekeeper's wife, approaching with a warm smile. Though Olivia braced herself for pitying glances or awkward condolences, Margaret simply embraced her as if no time had passed since their last meeting. "We've missed seeing you at the sewing circle," Margaret continued, linking her arm through Olivia's. "Will you be staying for the gathering later?" "Yes, we plan to," Olivia confirmed, finding comfort in the older woman's matter-of-fact manner. "Wonderful. Now, you must come see the new fabrics Thomas brought in from Tucson last week. Absolutely beautiful calicos that would make charming curtains for your front room." As Margaret led her into the store, Olivia caught Wade's eye. He gave her an encouraging nod before turning to speak with George Wilson about ranch supplies. The morning passed more easily than Olivia had expected. People were kind but not overbearing, expressing genuine pleasure at seeing her in town again without dwelling on the reason for her absence. By the time the community gathering began in the town square at noon, she felt some of her tension easing. The monthly gathering was part social event, part informal town meeting. Families spread blankets on the grass or gathered at the rough wooden tables scattered throughout the square. Children played games while the adults ate and discussed everything from weather prospects to territorial politics. Wade and Olivia found a spot beneath a cottonwood tree, spreading their picnic blanket in the dappled shade. They had just settled down with plates of food from the communal tables when Reverend Collins approached them. "Wade, Olivia," he greeted them warmly. "It does my heart good to see you both today." "Thank you, Reverend," Wade replied, shifting to make room on the blanket. "Would you care to join us?" The Reverend accepted the invitation, easing his lanky frame down beside them with a grateful sigh. "These old knees aren't what they used to be." They spoke of general matters for a few minutes: the weather, the crops, the Reverend's plans for repairs to the church roof. Finally, Wade cleared his throat and glanced at Olivia, who gave him a slight nod. "Reverend, we were hoping to ask your advice on something," Wade began. The older man's kind eyes moved between them. "Of course, how can I help? We've been thinking about opening our home to a child who needs one," Olivia said, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "We wanted to know if you might have any guidance on how such arrangements are made in these parts." Understanding dawned in the Reverend's expression. "I see," he nodded thoughtfully. "As it happens, I may be able to help more directly than you might expect." "What do you mean?" Wade asked. "I received a letter just last week from an orphanage in Santa Fe. They're overcrowded and seeking good homes for several children. The sisters who run the place are particular about where they place their charges. They want Christian homes with means to provide proper care and education." Olivia felt her heart quicken. "And they wrote to you." "They wrote to several ministers throughout the territory," Reverend Collins explained, "asking us to identify suitable families who might be interested in providing permanent homes. I've been praying about who to approach." Wade's hand found Olivia's, squeezing gently. Would you consider us suitable candidates, Reverend?" The older man smiled. "I can think of few homes better suited to welcome a child in need, Wade." Your ranch is prosperous, you have a solid reputation in the community, and anyone who has seen you together knows the depth of love in your marriage. Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. How would it work? Would we travel to Santa Fe? The sisters are arranging transport for the children to communities where homes have been secured, the Reverend explained. I believe they hope to have arrangements finalized within the month. If you're serious about this, I could write to them immediately. Olivia looked at Wade, a silent communication passing between them. This was happening faster than she had anticipated, but the timing felt somehow right, as if their conversation on the porch had set wheels in motion that were meant to turn. We would need to discuss specifics, Wade said carefully, but yes, we're serious about this. Very good. Reverend Collins nodded. In that case, I suggest we meet at the church tomorrow after services to discuss details. The sisters will want to know about your circumstances, your faith, your ability to provide for a child's needs, and you'll want information about the children seeking homes. Thank you, Reverend, Olivia said softly. This means more than you know. After the Reverend moved on to speak with other parishioners, Olivia and Wade sat in silence for a moment, processing the unexpected turn their inquiry had taken. Are you all right with this? Wade asked finally. It's happening rather suddenly. Olivia considered the question carefully. I think I am. It feels like the right path is opening before us just when we needed it most. Wade's expression softened. I feel the same way. They remained at the gathering for another hour, their minds preoccupied with thoughts of what might lie ahead. On the ride home, they spoke of practical matters: which bedroom would be best for a child, what supplies they might need, how their daily routines might change. You think we'll have any say in which child comes to us? Olivia asked as their ranch came into view. Wade considered this. I don't know. I suppose it depends on how many families the Reverend finds and how many children need homes. I keep thinking about ages, Olivia admitted. A baby would be... She hesitated, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Difficult, Wade finished for her, understanding in his voice. Too much like what we've lost, at least right now. Olivia nodded, grateful for his perception. But an older child might have memories, might miss their birth parents. That seems like its own kind of heartache. Every path has its challenges, Wade said gently. But I believe we're strong enough to face them, whatever child comes our way. As they pulled up to the ranch house, Olivia looked at it with new eyes, seeing not what was missing but what might be. The empty porch swing could hold a child reading a book. The yard could ring with laughter. The quiet rooms could fill with the sounds of growing, learning, living. We should write to your parents, she said suddenly, and to my sister. They should know they might be grandparents and an aunt before the summer's end. Wade helped her down from the wagon, his smile broad and genuine. I'll write the letters tonight. That evening, as they sat at the kitchen table drafting letters to their family members, Olivia felt a sense of purpose returning to her life. The grief wasn't gone, she doubted it ever would be entirely, but it no longer consumed her every waking thought. Wade. She said, setting down her pen. He looked up from his own letter. Yes, thank you, for not giving up on me, on us these past months, for still seeing the family we could be. Wade reached across the table, taking her hand in his. There was never anything to give up on, Liv. You're my heart, and hearts don't stop beating just because they're bruised. In that moment, with her husband's hand warm in hers and possibilities unfolding before them, Olivia allowed herself to believe that the empty arms that had haunted her for so long might soon hold a child, not the children they had lost, but a child who needed exactly what they had to give. The following day, they met with Reverend Collins after Sunday services. In his small office behind the church, the minister provided more details about the orphanage in Santa Fe and the children needing homes. The sisters have particular concern for 3 siblings, Reverend Collins explained, referencing the letter spread on his desk. Ages 8, 6, and 4. Their parents died in a fire this past winter, and they've been at the orphanage since then. Olivia exchanged a glance with Wade. 3 children, she asked, both apprehension and interest in her voice. The sisters are reluctant to separate them, the Reverend continued, but finding a home willing to take all 3 has proven challenging. Wade leaned forward. Tell us more about them. 2 boys and a girl. The eldest is named Samuel, then Daniel, and the youngest is Emma. Their family name is Anderson. They were apparently from a small homestead outside Santa Fe. The father was a carpenter by trade. Reverend Collins looked up from the letter. The sisters describe them as well-behaved, educated for their ages. The eldest boy is apparently quite protective of his siblings. Olivia tried to imagine 3 children, filling the rooms of their home. It was overwhelming to contemplate, yet something in the Reverend's description tugged at her heart. What would be expected of us? Wade asked. Legally, I mean. The orphanage has papers drawn up that would grant you legal guardianship, Reverend Collins explained. It would be a permanent arrangement, not fostering, but true adoption. The children would take your name, inherit your property as if born to you. And what about the children's wishes? Olivia asked quietly. Do they have any say in who becomes their new family? The Reverend smiled approvingly. A thoughtful question, Mrs. Yates. According to Sister Maria's letter, they do speak with the older children about potential placements. No child is sent where they express strong objections. Wade nodded, his expression serious. That seems right. There are other children too, if taking on 3 at once seems too much, Reverend Collins added. Several younger ones, including a few infants. Olivia felt Wade's eyes on her, gauging her reaction. A few weeks ago, the mention of infants would have cut like a knife. Now, she felt a pang, but not the sharp agony that had previously accompanied such thoughts. I think we should consider the siblings, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. They've already lost so much, if we can keep them together. Wade's hand found hers beneath the table, squeezing gently. I agree. Reverend Collins beamed at them. I had hoped you might say that. Now, the sisters have asked for certain information from prospective families. He produced a form with various questions about their home, finances, faith, and experience with children. Wade and Olivia spent the next hour answering each query thoughtfully, with the Reverend adding his own endorsement of their character and circumstances. I'll post this tomorrow, Reverend Collins said when they had finished. Given the urgency of their situation, I expect we'll hear back within a fortnight. As they rode home, Olivia's mind whirled with thoughts of what might lie ahead. 3 children, not babies to be shaped from the beginning, but young people with memories and personalities already forming. The challenge seemed immense, yet somehow right. Are you certain about this? Wade asked as they approached their property. Taking on 3 children at once would be no small undertaking. Olivia considered his question carefully. I'm not certain of anything except that those children need a home and we have one to give. The rest, I suppose we'd learn as we go, just as any parents do. Wade's smile was gentle. That's how I see it too. The next 2 weeks passed in a flurry of preparation. Without knowing for certain whether the siblings would come to them, Olivia nonetheless felt compelled to ready their home. She cleaned and organized the 2 small bedrooms adjacent to the nursery, thinking the boys could share one while Emma took the other. Wade built a second bed for the boys' room and fashioned a small bookshelf for each bedroom. Together, they rode into town and purchased additional bedding, clothes of approximately the right sizes, and a few toys and books they thought children of those ages might enjoy. Their neighbors, learning of their plans through Reverend Collins, rallied around them with support and practical assistance. Eleanor Jenkins arrived one afternoon with a trunk full of clothes her own children had outgrown. George Wilson offered Wade a good price on a larger dining table to accommodate their potentially expanded family. Even the town's schoolteacher, Miss Abernathy, paid them a visit, bringing primers and readers to help continue the children's education. The community's response has been overwhelming, Olivia remarked one evening as they sat on the porch after a long day of preparations. Wade nodded, his arm around her shoulders. People care about you, Liv. They've been waiting for a chance to show it. 16 days after their meeting with Reverend Collins, a messenger arrived at their ranch with a telegram. With trembling hands, Olivia unfolded the paper and read aloud. Request approved. Stop Anderson siblings arriving Vulture City June 15th. Stop letter follows with details. Stop sister Maria, June 15th, just 10 days away. Olivia felt a rush of emotions so complex she could scarcely name them all. Joy, apprehension, excitement, and a touch of fear swirled within her. It's really happening, she whispered. Wade's face reflected her own mix of emotions. We're going to be parents to 3 children. The reality of it settled over them both. For months, they had been a household in mourning, a family incomplete. Now, in less than 2 weeks, their quiet ranch would welcome 3 young lives, each carrying their own grief and hopes. Do you think they'll like us? Olivia asked softly. Wade considered this. I don't know, but I think they'll recognize that we genuinely want to give them a good home. That's a starting point. Yes, Olivia agreed, a starting point. The days that followed passed in a blur of final preparations. The promised letter arrived from Sister Maria, providing more details about the children. Samuel was serious and studious, Daniel energetic and curious, Emma quiet but affectionate. All 3 were in good health and had been attending lessons at the orphanage. The night before the children's scheduled arrival, Olivia stood in the doorway of Emma's prepared room, gazing at the small bed with its patchwork quilt, the rag doll propped against the pillow, the curtains she had sewn from cheerful yellow fabric. What if they're unhappy here? She asked Wade, who stood beside her. Then we'll work to make it better, he replied simply. Day by day, until this feels like home to them. Olivia leaned against him, drawing strength from his steady presence. I'm terrified and elated all at once. That sounds about right for the night before becoming parents to 3 children, Wade said with a gentle chuckle. They rose before dawn the next morning. The stagecoach was scheduled to arrive in Vulture City at noon, carrying the Anderson siblings accompanied by a sister from the orphanage who would oversee the final arrangements. Olivia dressed with special care in a pretty calico dress, wanting to make a good impression. Wade, too, wore his Sunday best, his dark hair neatly combed and his usually unruly beard trimmed. You look like you're about to face a firing squad, Olivia teased gently as they prepared to leave. Wade adjusted his collar nervously. Feels a bit like it. What do I know about being a father to 3 children? Olivia straightened his string tie. You know how to be kind, patient, and strong. That's a good beginning. The ride to town seemed both interminable and too quick. By the time they reached Vulture City, the main street was buzzing with activity. Word had spread about the orphans' arrival, and it seemed half the town had found reasons to be near the stagecoach stop at noon. Quite the welcoming committee, Wade murmured as they made their way through the crowd. Reverend Collins spotted them and waved them over to where he stood near the stagecoach platform. Ah, the Yates, just in time. The coach was spotted about a mile out. Sure enough, a cloud of dust was visible on the road leading into town. Olivia felt her heart pounding in her chest as the stagecoach came into view, the team of horses trotting steadily toward them. When the coach finally pulled to a stop, the crowd fell expectantly silent. The driver secured the reins and jumped down to open the door. The first person to emerge was a middle-aged woman in the distinctive habit of the Sisters of Charity. Sister Maria, for that was who it must be, scanned the crowd and spotted Reverend Collins, who raised a hand in greeting. She nodded and turned back to the coach door, speaking softly to someone inside. A moment later, a boy appeared in the doorway. He was tall for 8 years old, with straight brown hair and serious eyes that took in the waiting crowd with evident wariness. This must be Samuel. He turned to help a smaller boy, Daniel, who clambered down with more eagerness, his eyes wide at the sight of so many people. Last came a tiny girl with blonde braids, her small hand clutched firmly in her oldest brother's. Emma looked frightened by the crowd, pressing close to Samuel's side as they stood uncertainly by the coach. Sister Maria approached Reverend Collins, the children following closely behind her. The crowd respectfully stepped back, giving them space. "Reverend Collins, a pleasure to meet you in person," Sister Maria said, her voice carrying a slight accent that hinted at Irish origins. "The pleasure is mine, Sister," the Reverend replied warmly. "May I present Wade and Olivia Yates?" Olivia stepped forward, Wade at her side. Up close, she could see the freckles scattered across Daniel's nose, the way Emma's hair curled at her temples despite the tight braids, the protective stance Samuel took slightly in front of his siblings. "Mr. and Mrs. Yates," Sister Maria acknowledged with a nod. "I've heard good things about you both," she turned to the children. "Samuel, Daniel, Emma, these are the people I told you about. They have a ranch outside of town and have offered to give you a home." Samuel's expression remained guarded, but he offered a polite nod. "Madam, sir." Daniel looked up at them with open curiosity. "Do you have horses at your ranch?" "We do," Wade answered, his voice gentle. 5 horses and 2 milk cows." Daniel's eyes widened appreciatively. "I've never ridden a horse." "Well, we'll have to teach you then," Wade replied with a smile. "When you're ready." Emma hadn't spoken, her wide blue eyes fixed on Olivia's face. Slowly, Olivia crouched down to the child's level, careful not to move too quickly. "Hello, Emma," she said softly. "I'm very glad to meet you." The little girl didn't respond verbally, but she didn't shrink away either. After a moment, her gaze moved to the cameo brooch at Olivia's throat. "It's pretty, isn't it?" Olivia said, touching the brooch lightly. "It belonged to my grandmother. Would you like to look at it more closely?" Emma nodded almost imperceptibly. Olivia unpinned the brooch and held it out in her palm. With hesitant movements, Emma reached out one finger to touch the carved surface. "Pretty," she whispered, the first word they had heard from her. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," Reverend Collins suggested, nodding toward the curious onlookers. "Of course," Wade agreed. "We've prepared a picnic lunch. We thought we might take it to the creek just outside town where it's quiet." Sister Maria nodded approvingly. "That sounds ideal." Within half an hour, they were settled in a peaceful spot by the creek that ran near the edge of town. Wade spread a blanket in the shade of a cottonwood tree, and Olivia unpacked the basket of food they had prepared: fried chicken, biscuits, apple tarts, and lemonade. As they ate, the atmosphere gradually relaxed. Daniel peppered Wade with questions about the ranch, while Samuel listened attentively, occasionally adding a question of his own. Emma sat close to Olivia, still quiet but accepting small bites of food when offered. Sister Maria observed it all with a practiced eye. When the meal was finished and the children were exploring the creek bank under Samuel's watchful supervision, she addressed Wade and Olivia directly. "The children have been through much in the past 6 months," she said. "They've shown remarkable resilience, but they carry deep grief." "We understand," Olivia said softly. "We've known our share of loss as well," the sister nodded. "So Reverend Collins mentioned, that understanding will serve you well." She paused, watching as Samuel helped Emma across a row of stepping stones. "Samuel feels responsible for his siblings. He'll need time to trust that you can care for them properly." "We wouldn't want to undermine his role," Wade assured her. "He's been brave and strong for them." "Daniel adapts more readily," Sister Maria continued, "but he has nightmares sometimes about the fire." Olivia's heart ached at this. "And Emma?" She spoke quite normally before the tragedy, the sister explained. The silence came afterward. The doctor at the orphanage found no physical cause. Olivia watched the little girl, who was now crouched beside her brother examining something in the shallow water. "She'll speak when she's ready." Sister Maria smiled approvingly. "That's my belief as well." She reached into her bag and withdrew a packet of papers. "These are the legal documents transferring guardianship to you both. They require your signatures, witnessed by Reverend Collins." Wade and Olivia read through the papers carefully. The language was formal but clear. They would become the legal parents of Samuel, Daniel, and Emma Anderson, who would henceforth be known as Samuel, Daniel, and Emma Yates. They would be responsible for the children's physical care, education, and moral upbringing until they reached adulthood. With steady hands, they signed their names. Reverend Collins added his signature as witness, and Sister Maria affixed the orphanage seal. "It's done," Sister Maria said simply. "Legally, you are now their parents." Olivia looked at the 3 children by the creek, now their children, at least in the eyes of the law. Becoming parents in their hearts, both theirs and the children's, would take longer. Should we tell them now? Wade asked. Sister Maria nodded. They understand the purpose of our journey. Samuel, in particular, has been preparing his siblings for this transition. Wade called to the children, who approached with varying degrees of eagerness. Daniel bounded up immediately while Samuel walked more deliberately, holding Emma's hand. "We've just signed the papers," Wade explained when they stood before them. "According to the law, we're now your guardians, your new parents." Samuel's expression remained serious. "What does that mean exactly, sir?" "It means our home is your home now," Olivia answered gently. "Our family is your family. You'll live with us, go to school from our house, grow up on our ranch. Will we have chores?" Daniel asked pragmatically. Wade smiled. "Yes, appropriate ones for your ages. Everyone helps out on a ranch." "What about our name?" Samuel asked, his brow furrowed. "Are we supposed to be Yates now instead of Anderson?" Sister Maria answered this question. "Legally, yes, but in your hearts you'll always be your parents' children too. The Yates understand that. We would never ask you to forget your mother and father," Olivia assured them. "They'll always be part of who you are." Samuel considered this, then nodded slowly. "I promised Pa I'd take care of Daniel and Emma. Can I still do that?" "Of course," Wade said seriously. "You're their big brother. That doesn't change. But now you have help with that responsibility. You don't have to carry it all alone anymore." Something in the boy's rigid posture eased slightly at these words. "Can I call you Ma and Pa?" Daniel asked suddenly. Olivia felt her breath catch. She glanced at Wade, who looked equally moved by the question. "You can call us whatever feels right to you," Wade answered carefully. "Ma and Pa, Wade and Olivia, or something else entirely. There's no rush to decide." Emma tugged at Samuel's sleeve, and he bent down so she could whisper in his ear. He straightened, a small smile touching his lips for the first time. "Emma wants to know if she can bring her doll. The sisters gave her a rag doll at Christmas." "Of course she can," Olivia said warmly. "We have a room ready for her with a bed for her doll too." Emma's eyes widened at this. "My own room?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Olivia nodded, joy filling her at hearing the child speak directly to her. "Your very own. The boys will share the room next to yours." Sister Maria watched this exchange with evident satisfaction. "I believe we've accomplished what we needed to today. Mr. and Mrs. Yates, are you prepared to take the children home with you now?" Wade looked to Olivia, who nodded. "Yes," he confirmed. "We're ready whenever they are." Sister Maria turned to the children. "Your belongings are in the trunks on the stagecoach. It's time to say goodbye to me and begin your new life here." To Olivia's surprise, Emma was the first to move, stepping forward to wrap her small arms around Sister Maria's waist. The nun embraced her warmly, then knelt to speak to her quietly. Emma nodded solemnly at whatever was said. Daniel was next, giving the sister a quick but heartfelt hug. "Thank you for the picture books," he said. "You're most welcome, Daniel. Mind your lessons now." Samuel approached last, his composure slipping slightly as he faced the woman who had cared for them since their parents' death. "Thank you for finding us a place together," he said formally. Sister Maria squeezed his shoulder. "You're a good boy, Samuel. Your parents would be very proud of how you've looked after your brother and sister." The boy blinked rapidly, but maintained his composure. With the goodbyes complete, Wade went to retrieve the children's trunks while Olivia packed up the remains of their picnic. The children stood together, watching these activities with varying expressions of apprehension and curiosity. "Our wagon is just down the street," Wade explained as he returned with the trunks. "It's about an hour's ride to the ranch." They made their way back into town. where Sister Maria would remain overnight as a guest of the church before catching the stage coach back to Santa Fe the next day. The crowd had largely dispersed, though several townspeople nodded and smiled as the unusual procession passed. Wade loaded the trunks into the back of the wagon, then helped the children climb aboard. Samuel insisted on helping Emma up himself, though he accepted Wade's steadying hand on his own climb. Olivia settled on the bench seat with Emma beside her, while the boys sat in the back with their trunks. "Ready?" Wade asked, taking up the reins. 3 solemn faces looked back at him. Daniel nodded eagerly, Samuel gave a measured "yes, sir," and Emma simply clutched the small rag doll she had retrieved from her trunk. As they drove out of town, Olivia glanced back at the boys in the wagon bed. Daniel was already pointing out sights along the road while Samuel sat straight-backed, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar landscape. "It's pretty country," Olivia said. "Different from where you lived before, I imagine." "We had more trees," Samuel acknowledged, "and mountains close by." "The mountains are to the north of us," Wade explained. "You can see them from the upstairs window on clear days." "Do you have a big house?" Daniel asked. "Not very big," Wade answered honestly, "but comfortable. 2 stories with room enough for all of us." Emma leaned slightly against Olivia's side as the wagon jolted over a rut in the road. Tentatively, Olivia put her arm around the small shoulders, and when Emma didn't pull away, she left it there. By the time they turned onto the long drive leading to the ranch house, Emma had fallen asleep against Olivia, the emotional toll of the day catching up with her. Daniel had peppered Wade with dozens of questions about the ranch, while Samuel had gradually relaxed enough to join the conversation occasionally. As the house came into view, Olivia felt a strange mixture of nervousness and rightness. This familiar place was about to change forever with the addition of 3 new lives. "That's our home," she said softly, gently rousing Emma. "You're home now, too." The little girl blinked sleepily, then sat up straighter as she took in the 2-story wooden house with its wide front porch. The boys, too, examined their new home with interest. "It's bigger than our old house," Daniel observed. "Pa built our house himself," Samuel added, a note of pride in his voice. "He was a carpenter." Wade nodded respectfully. "That's a valuable skill. Perhaps you picked up some of his knowledge." Samuel shrugged, but Olivia caught the pleased expression that flitted across his face at Wade's suggestion. As they pulled up to the house, Wade set the brake and jumped down, moving to help them all from the wagon. To his credit, he seemed to understand intuitively that Samuel needed to maintain his role as protector, allowing the boy to help his siblings down while offering support only where necessary. "Let's get your trunks inside, then we can show you around," Wade suggested. The children followed Olivia up the porch steps while Wade carried the first trunk. At the door, Olivia paused, struck by the significance of the moment. These 3 children were about to cross the threshold into their new life. "Welcome home," she said, opening the door wide. They entered the front room with its comfortable furniture and cheerful curtains. Olivia had spent the previous day making sure everything was clean and welcoming, with wildflowers in vases and fresh baked cookies on the kitchen table. "It smells nice," Daniel said appreciatively, sniffing the air. "Like cookies." "There are cookies in the kitchen," Olivia confirmed with a smile. "But first, would you like to see your rooms?" This suggestion was met with nods, so Olivia led them up the stairs while Wade brought in the remaining trunk. The upper floor of the house had 4 bedrooms, the master bedroom at one end, the former nursery, and the 2 rooms Olivia had prepared for the children. "This one is for Emma," Olivia said, opening the door to the room with yellow curtains. The little girl peered inside cautiously, her eyes widening at the sight of the bed with its patchwork quilt, the small bookshelf with several children's books, and the child-sized rocking chair by the window. "That's all for me," she whispered. "All for you," Olivia confirmed, her heart full. "And look, there's a special place for your doll on the pillow." Emma stepped into the room slowly, approaching the bed and carefully placing her rag doll in the indicated spot. She stroked the quilt with one small hand, then looked up at Olivia with the first real smile they had seen from her. "Thank you." The boys' room next door was similarly prepared, with 2 beds, a shelf of books and games, and a large chest for their clothes and personal items. "You two will share this room," Olivia explained. "We thought you might prefer to be together." Samuel nodded, apparently relieved that he would be sleeping near Daniel. "Look at these books," Daniel exclaimed, already examining the shelf. "Samuel, they have Treasure Island. You can read any of them," Olivia told them, "and we can get more from town if there are others you'd like." Wade appeared in the doorway with the second trunk. "Where would you like this one?" "That's our trunk," Samuel said. "Daniel and me." "Let's put it here for now," Wade suggested, setting it at the foot of one bed. "You boys can unpack later if you like." The final stop on their tour was the small room that had been intended as a nursery. Olivia had debated what to do with this space, finally deciding to convert it into a study area for the children, with a table for schoolwork, bookshelves, and a comfortable window seat. "This is where you can do your lessons," she explained. "Reverend Collins mentioned you were all attending school at the orphanage." Samuel nodded. "I'm in 3rd reader, Daniel's in 1st, Emma hasn't started formal schooling yet." "The town school is 3 miles from here," Wade explained. "When the term begins in September, you'll attend there. Until then, we can continue your lessons at home." By the time they returned downstairs, all 3 children seemed slightly overwhelmed by the new surroundings and information. Olivia suggested cookies and milk in the kitchen, which was met with enthusiasm from Daniel and cautious agreement from the others. As they sat around the kitchen table, Olivia noticed Emma stifling a yawn. "It's been a long day for all of you," she said gently. "Perhaps after your snack you might like to rest for a while before dinner." Samuel looked relieved at this suggestion. "Emma usually naps in the afternoon," he explained, "and Daniel too sometimes, though he won't admit it." "I do not." Daniel protested, even as he unsuccessfully tried to suppress a yawn of his own. Wade chuckled. "Well, I sometimes rest my eyes in the afternoon myself. Nothing wrong with that." After their snack, Olivia helped Emma settle for a nap while the boys explored the bookshelf in their room. Wade returned outside to tend to the horses and complete a few necessary chores. When Olivia came back downstairs, she found herself standing alone in the kitchen for the first time since bringing the children home. The house felt different already, filled with new energy, new possibilities, and yes, new challenges. She moved to the window, gazing out at the yard where Wade was visible by the barn. Her husband glanced up, catching her eye, and raised a hand in greeting. She returned the gesture, a smile spreading across her face. Just 3 days ago, she had sat on the porch with empty arms, mourning the family they might never have. Now, 3 children slept under their roof, children who had experienced their own profound losses, who needed patience, understanding, and love to heal. It wouldn't be easy. There would be difficult days ahead as they all adjusted to their new reality. But as Olivia watched Wade cross the yard toward the house, his stride purposeful and his expression quietly content, she felt the first real stirring of peace she had known in months. The family they had dreamed of hadn't come in the way they had expected. But it had come nonetheless, and with it, the chance to build something beautiful from the broken places in all their hearts. That evening, they shared their first dinner as a family around the new larger table. The conversation was still tentative, with long silences and careful questions. But by the time Olivia served apple pie for dessert, the atmosphere had relaxed considerably. Daniel chattered about the horses he had seen in the barn when Wade had taken the boys out to help with evening chores. Emma, though still using few words, had begun to respond more readily to direct questions. Samuel remained watchful but had offered genuine thanks for the meal and answered Olivia's questions about their previous schooling in detail. After dinner, Wade suggested they all sit on the porch to watch the sunset, a daily ritual he and Olivia had maintained throughout their marriage. "It's the prettiest time of day here," he explained as they settled onto the porch, the adults on the swing and the children on the steps below them. The sky was ablaze with color, streaks of orange and pink painting the western horizon as the sun dipped lower. In the distance, a coyote called, its haunting song echoing across the open land. "We had coyotes near our place too," Samuel said unexpectedly. "Pa used to say they were telling each other stories at night," Wade nodded. "My father said something similar, that they were singing the day to sleep." The boy glanced up, a flicker of connection passing between him and Wade. "I like that." As darkness fell, Olivia lit the lamps inside and suggested it was time to prepare for bed. There was some negotiation about washing up. Daniel protested he had already washed his hands before dinner, while Emma seemed confused by the large basin in her room, but eventually, all three children were cleaned up and dressed in the nightclothes Olivia had purchased. "Would you like us to read a story before bed?" Olivia asked as she helped Emma into the freshly made bed. The little girl nodded, clutching her rag doll close. "Samuel usually tells stories," she said softly. "Perhaps Samuel would like to tell one tonight then," Olivia suggested. This solution seemed to please everyone. The boys settled on the floor beside Emma's bed, and Samuel began a familiar tale about a clever rabbit that was clearly a favorite, judging by Daniel's excited interruptions to remind his brother of particular details. Olivia and Wade stood in the doorway, watching this family ritual with respectful attention. When the story concluded, Olivia stepped forward. "Would you like me to tuck you in now, Emma?" The child nodded, allowing Olivia to adjust her blankets and smooth her hair. "Thank you," she whispered. Next, they accompanied the boys to their room, where a similar ritual of settling in took place. Daniel asked approximately 15 more questions about the plan for the following day, while Samuel listened to the answers with careful attention. "We'll be right down the hall if you need anything during the night," Wade told them. "Don't hesitate to come find us." Samuel nodded soberly. "I'll look after them, sir." Wade placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "I know you will, but remember you're allowed to need things too." A complicated expression crossed Samuel's face, but he nodded again before climbing into bed. Later, as Olivia and Wade prepared for bed themselves, they spoke in low voices about their first day as parents. "They're remarkable children," Olivia said, brushing her hair at the dressing table. "So resilient, despite everything they've been through." Wade nodded, sitting on the edge of the bed to remove his boots. "Samuel carries too much weight for a boy his age. Did you see how he watched us serving food, making sure Emma and Daniel got enough before he took his portion?" "I did," Olivia confirmed sadly, "as if he's had to worry about there not being enough." "The orphanage seemed well run," Wade mused, "but perhaps resources were stretched thin with so many children, or perhaps it's simply his way of caring for them since their parents died." Olivia set down her brush and turned to face her husband. "He's trying to be both mother and father to them. We'll need to help him understand that he can still be their brother, their protector, while allowing us to take on the parental responsibilities," Wade said thoughtfully. Olivia moved to sit beside him on the bed. "It will take time for all of them, for us too," Wade took her hand. "Today, when you were showing Emma her room and she smiled at you, I've never seen anything more beautiful than your face in that moment, Liv." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. "I never thought I'd have that, a child smiling at me that way." "You were born to be a mother," Wade said softly. "These children are fortunate to have found you, to have found us," Olivia corrected, leaning against his shoulder. "You were wonderful with the boys today. The way you included Samuel when doing the chores, asking his opinion about the horses." Wade shrugged, though she could tell her words pleased him, just treating him with the respect he deserves. They were interrupted by a soft knock at their bedroom door. Wade rose to answer it, finding Daniel in his nightshirt looking anxious. "I can't sleep," the boy admitted. "The room makes different noises than the orphanage." "New places often do," Wade said kindly. "Would you like me to come sit with you for a while?" Daniel nodded, relief evident in his expression. "Just until Samuel falls asleep." He pretends he isn't tired, but he is. Wade glanced back at Olivia with a smile. I'll be back shortly. As he guided Daniel back to the boys' room, Olivia moved to the window, gazing out at the starlit landscape surrounding their home. She had always loved this view, the way the stars seemed to go on forever above the open country. Now, she found herself wondering if the children's parents were somewhere in that vastness, watching over the family that had taken in their precious children. "We'll care for them as if they were our own," she promised silently. "We'll love them and guide them and help them remember you." The thought brought unexpected peace. Perhaps this was how family was truly formed, not necessarily through blood and birth, but through love and commitment and the daily choice to be there for one another. Olivia turned from the window and climbed into bed, leaving the lamp burning low for Wade's return. As she waited, she realized that the arms that had felt so empty for so long now knew the weight of Emma's small body as she had carried the sleeping child up to bed after their sunset watching. It wasn't the family they had originally envisioned. It was something different, something built from loss and hope intertwined, something that would require patience and understanding to nurture. But it was, undeniably, a family beginning to take shape. The first week passed in a blur of adjustments and discoveries. Each day brought new insights into the children's personalities and habits. Daniel was an early riser, often appearing in the kitchen while Olivia was still making coffee, eager to help feed the chickens or collect eggs. Samuel was more deliberate, always ensuring Emma was dressed and ready for the day before presenting himself for breakfast. Emma remained quiet but began to follow Olivia around the house, watching intently as she performed household tasks. On their 5th day at the ranch, Olivia was kneading bread dough when she felt a tug on her apron. Looking down, she found Emma gazing up at her with determined eyes. "Can I help?" the child asked softly. Warmth bloomed in Olivia's chest. "Of course you can. Have you made bread before?" Emma nodded. "With Mama, she let me punch the dough." Olivia lifted the girl onto a chair beside the table. "That's the best part. Here, I'll show you." As they worked the dough together, Emma's small hands alongside Olivia's larger ones, the child began to speak more than she had in all the previous days combined. "Mama made bread every Saturday," she explained seriously. "And pie on Sundays after church. Did she?" Olivia encouraged, thrilled by this glimpse into their previous life. "What kind of pie was your favorite?" "Apple with cinnamon," Emma said promptly. "Daniel likes cherry best. Samuel says he doesn't care, but he always eats more when it's peach." Olivia smiled. "Well, we have apple trees in the orchard behind the house. When the apples are ripe, perhaps you can help me make apple pie for everyone." Emma's face lit up. "With cinnamon." "Absolutely with cinnamon," Olivia confirmed. When the bread was shaped into loaves and set to rise, Olivia wiped flour from Emma's cheek and found herself suddenly enveloped in a small, fierce hug. The child's arms wrapped tightly around her waist, her face pressed against Olivia's apron. Olivia returned the embrace gently, her heart so full it felt it might burst. Over the top of Emma's head, she caught sight of Wade in the doorway, returned from checking fence lines with the boys. The expression on his face, tender, moved, joyful, mirrored what she felt in her own heart. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Olivia and Wade sat on the porch swing in the cool evening air. "Emma helped me bake bread today," Olivia said, still marveling at the memory. "She told me about her mother's pies and which kinds her brothers preferred." Wade squeezed her hand. "That's wonderful, Liv. She's starting to feel safe here." "I think so." Olivia leaned her head against his shoulder. "How were the boys today?" "Good," Wade replied. "Samuel knows a fair amount about woodworking. His father clearly taught him the basics. I thought I might set up a small workbench for him in the barn, let him practice the skills." "He'd like that," Olivia agreed. "Did Daniel enjoy the ride?" Wade chuckled. "That boy was born to be on horseback. Never seen anyone take to it so naturally. Had to practically pry him off Thunder at the end of the day." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the gentle creak of the swing the only sound besides the chirping of crickets in the tall grass. "I wrote to the school board today," Wade said eventually. "To register the children for the fall term," Olivia nodded. "I need to take them into town soon for proper clothing and supplies. They can't keep wearing the orphanage clothes and what we guessed at for sizes." "Perhaps next week," Wade suggested. "Give them a little more time to settle in first." As they prepared for bed that night, Wade paused in the act of turning down the covers. "You know, I was thinking about something Samuel said today while we were mending the north fence." "What's that?" Olivia asked, brushing her hair. "I was showing him how to properly set a fence post, and he said his father had started teaching him before." Wade hesitated. "Before the fire. He mentioned they were building an addition to their cabin for the new baby." Olivia's brush stilled. "New baby," Wade nodded solemnly. "From what I gathered, their mother was expecting when the fire happened." Olivia closed her eyes, a wave of sorrow washing over her. "Those poor children, they lost even more than we realized." "It explains some things," Wade said quietly. "The way Samuel is so protective of Emma, as if he's trying to make up for the sibling they all lost. The way he watches you sometimes, when you're working with Emma." Olivia set down her brush and moved to sit on the edge of the bed beside Wade. "Should we talk to them about it?" "Acknowledge what they lost," Wade considered this. "I think we should follow their lead. Let them know we're here to listen if they want to speak about their parents, the baby, the fire, any of it, but not push them before they're ready." "That seems wise," Olivia agreed. As she lay in bed that night, listening to Wade's steady breathing beside her, Olivia found her thoughts turning to the woman who had been these children's mother. Had she sat on her own porch, dreaming of the new baby to come? Had she braided Emma's hair each morning, taught Daniel his letters, watched Samuel following in his father's footsteps with carpentry tools? The thought created an unexpected bond across the divide of life and death, one mother to another, sharing love for the same children. "I'll care for them well," Olivia promised silently. "I'll honor your memory in the way I raise them." With that pledge in her heart, she finally drifted to sleep. The following Sunday marked their first church attendance as a family. Olivia had spent Saturday afternoon pressing the children's best clothes and preparing a special breakfast to start the important day. As they dressed on Sunday morning, a nervous energy filled the house. The children had met some townspeople on their arrival, but this would be their formal introduction to the community as the Yates family. "Do we have to say we're Yates now?" Samuel asked as Wade helped him with his string tie. "I don't want to forget we were Andersons." Wade considered the boy thoughtfully. "How about this? When we introduce you, we can say this is Samuel Anderson Yates. That way you keep both names. Would that feel better?" Relief washed over Samuel's face. "Yes, sir, thank you." In the girls' room, Olivia was carefully braiding Emma's hair. "Would you like one braid or two today?" she asked. "Two, please," Emma replied. "With the blue ribbons to match my dress, excellent choice," Olivia smiled. Reaching for the ribbons she had purchased in town, when they were all dressed and ready, they gathered by the wagon. The children looked solemn and a bit apprehensive in their Sunday best. "Everyone looks very fine," Wade said approvingly. "Ready for church?" 3 nods answered him, and they set off for town. The church in Vulture City was a simple white painted building with a modest steeple. As they pulled up outside, Olivia could see many familiar faces already gathering on the steps and in the churchyard. "Remember," she said gently to the children, "these people are our friends and neighbors. They're very happy you've come to live with us." Margaret Wilson was the first to approach as they climbed down from the wagon. "Olivia, Wade," she greeted them warmly. "And these must be the children we've been hearing about." Introductions were made all around, with Wade carefully using all of the children's full names as promised. Most of the congregation was welcoming and tactful, though there were inevitably a few awkward questions, and one elderly woman who remarked too loudly that Emma didn't look a thing like either of them, did she? Samuel stiffened at this, but Olivia smoothly replied, She's the very image of my grandmother at that age, actually, which wasn't true but effectively ended that line of conversation. Inside the church, they settled into a pew near the middle. Emma sat between Olivia and Samuel, while Daniel sat on Wade's other side, craning his neck to look at the stained glass windows. The service was familiar and comforting, with Reverend Collins offering a sermon about the many forms family can take in God's creation. Though he didn't specifically mention the Yates family, the message felt particularly appropriate, and Olivia caught the Reverend's gentle smile in their direction more than once. After the service, many of the congregation lingered for the monthly potluck lunch on the church grounds. The children stayed close to Olivia and Wade initially, but gradually began to relax as other children invited Daniel to join their games, and Emma found herself admired by several women who complimented her hair ribbons. Samuel remained more reserved until George Wilson engaged him in conversation about carpentry, showing genuine interest in the boy's knowledge of woodworking. By the time the meal ended, Samuel was explaining to Mr. Wilson and several other men how his father had designed a special joint for cabinet making. "They're settling in well," Reverend Collins observed, coming to stand beside Olivia as she watched the children. "Especially considering it's been less than 2 weeks. They're remarkable children," Olivia replied, "but there's still so much grief beneath the surface. Samuel mentioned last night that he misses his mother's singing. Daniel had a nightmare about the fire, and Emma," she hesitated. "Emma is opening up more each day, but sometimes I catch her looking so lost." The Reverend nodded understandingly. "Healing takes time for all of you, but I see love growing here, and that's the most powerful medicine there is." On the ride home, the children were unusually quiet, processing the many new faces and experiences of the morning. As they approached the ranch, Wade cleared his throat. "I thought we might do something special this afternoon," he said. "It's a fine day for a picnic by the creek on our property. There's a swimming hole there that might be nice in this heat." Daniel perked up immediately. "Can we go swimming?" "Really, if you know how," Wade answered. "And if not, I can teach you the basics in the shallow part." "I can swim," Samuel said. "Pa taught me last summer." I was starting to teach Daniel, but he trailed off. "Well then," Wade said easily, filling the awkward silence, "perhaps you and I can continue Daniel's lessons together." The afternoon at the creek turned out to be exactly what they all needed after the social demands of the morning. The boys took to the water with enthusiasm, while Emma was content to wade in the shallows, collecting pretty stones and showing them to Olivia. Wade worked with both boys on their swimming skills, praising Samuel's technique and encouraging Daniel's efforts. Olivia spread a quilt in the shade of a large cottonwood tree and unpacked the simple picnic she had prepared. As the sun began its westward slide, Wade helped the boys build a small dam of stones across a narrow section of the creek. Emma, growing braver, ventured deeper into the water with Olivia holding her hands. "Look at me," the little girl called to her brothers. "I'm swimming like you." Samuel and Daniel paused in their dam building to watch and offer enthusiastic encouragement. Wade, standing nearby in case he was needed, caught Olivia's eye over Emma's head. His expression held the same wonder and gratitude she felt at the sound of Emma's delighted laughter, at the sight of the boys working together, at this moment of simple family joy. Later, as they sat on the quilt enjoying lemonade and cookies, Daniel asked unexpectedly, "Is this our home forever now?" The question hung in the air, weighted with all the uncertainty the children had experienced in their young lives. "Yes," Wade answered firmly. "This is your home for as long as you want it to be. Even when we're grown up," Daniel persisted. "Even then," Olivia confirmed. "This will always be your home to return to, no matter where life takes you." Samuel, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "What if? What if we do something wrong? The sisters said we had to be on our best behavior or no one would want to keep us." Olivia and Wade exchanged concerned glances. No wonder Samuel had been so careful, so anxious to ensure his siblings behaved perfectly. Samuel, Wade said seriously, all children make mistakes sometimes. That's part of growing up. When you do something wrong, there might be consequences like having to apologize or missing a treat or doing extra chores, but nothing you could do would make us send you away. Nothing. Daniel asked, his eyes wide. Nothing, Olivia confirmed. We're a family now. Families stick together even when things are difficult. Emma, who had been quietly listening, crawled into Olivia's lap and nestled against her chest. Like forever, she whispered. Olivia wrapped her arms around the small, warm body, breathing in the scent of sunshine in the child's hair. Like forever, she promised. That evening, after the children were in bed, Olivia found Wade sitting at the kitchen table, a piece of paper and pencil before him. "What are you working on?" she asked, sliding into the chair beside him. "Plans for the barn expansion," he replied, turning the rough sketch so she could see it better. "I've been thinking about it for a while, but now with the children here, it seems like the right time to move forward." Olivia studied the drawing. "It looks like more than just additional storage space," Wade nodded. "I thought we might add a proper workshop area, a place where I could teach the boys carpentry, maybe let Samuel continue developing his father's craft." "He would love that," Olivia said softly. "And this section here," Wade continued, pointing to another part of the drawing, "could be enclosed for the new milk cow and calf I've been thinking about getting. Emma might enjoy helping with a calf. She seems to have a gentle way with animals." Olivia leaned against his shoulder, deeply moved by how thoroughly he was integrating the children into their future plans. "When did you want to start building?" "I thought I might order the lumber next week," Wade replied. "George Wilson mentioned his older boys are looking for extra work this summer. With their help, we could have it completed before the school term begins." "The children could help too," Olivia suggested. "It would give them a sense of contributing to the place." Wade smiled. "I was thinking the same thing. Samuel's old enough for real carpentry lessons, and Daniel can help with simpler tasks. Even Emma could hand us nails or help paint the lower sections." As they discussed the practical details of the project, Olivia felt a deep sense of rightness settle over her. This was how family worked, making plans together, building for a future that included all of them, creating spaces where each person could thrive. The next morning, Wade presented the barn expansion plan to the children over breakfast. As expected, Samuel showed particular interest in the workshop area, while Daniel was most excited about the idea of helping with construction. "Can I hammer real nails?" he asked eagerly. "We'll start with you holding the nails while I hammer," Wade replied prudently. "Then work up from there as you learn." Emma, who had been listening quietly, asked, "What can I do to help?" "Well," Wade said seriously, "every building project needs someone to bring water to the workers when they get thirsty. And someone needs to be in charge of counting nails and making sure we don't run short. Those would be very important jobs." Emma nodded solemnly. "I can do that." "I know you can," Wade smiled. "And when we get to painting, you can help with the lower sections that are hard for tall people like me to reach properly." With the project decided, the family fell into a pleasant summer routine. Mornings were spent on chores and lessons, with Olivia working with the children on their reading and arithmetic to ensure they wouldn't fall behind when school began. Afternoons often included swimming at the creek or exploration of the ranch property, with Wade teaching the children about the plants and animals that shared their land. In late July, they traveled to town to purchase school supplies and additional clothing for the growing children. The outing was more relaxed than their church attendance had been, with the children now comfortable enough to explore the general store while Olivia selected fabrics for new clothes. At the mercantile, Thomas Wilson presented each child with a small gift: a carved wooden horse for Daniel, a leather bookmark for Samuel, and a pretty hair comb for Emma. "Welcome gifts," he explained with a wink to Olivia. A bit delayed, but sincere nonetheless. The children's delighted thanks, and the way they carefully tucked their treasures away, brought a lump to Olivia's throat. These small kindnesses from the community were helping the children feel that Vulture City was truly becoming their home. August brought the beginning of construction on the barn expansion. True to his word, Wade hired the Wilson boys to help with the heavy work while involving Samuel and Daniel in age-appropriate tasks. Emma took her responsibilities of water carrying and nail counting very seriously, carefully marking each count in a small notebook Wade had given her for the purpose. One particularly hot afternoon, as they were raising the frame for the new workshop section, Olivia brought out a pitcher of lemonade for the workers. Wade paused to take a long drink, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's looking good," Olivia observed, glancing at the progress. "Samuel's got a real knack for woodworking," Wade replied quietly, watching as the boy carefully measured a board under the supervision of the eldest Wilson son. "He told me yesterday that working on this reminds him of building with his father." "In a good way or a sad way?" Olivia asked. "Both, I think," Wade answered thoughtfully. "But mostly good. He said his pa would be glad he's learning more carpentry." Olivia nodded, understanding. The children spoke more freely about their parents now, sharing memories both happy and sad. They had established a ritual of saying goodnight to their parents each evening before bed, something Olivia and Wade quietly encouraged as a way of honoring the family they had lost while embracing the new one they were building together. As summer began to wane, the barn expansion neared completion. The workshop area was Wade's particular focus, and he spent several evenings crafting a small workbench sized perfectly for Samuel, complete with a set of beginner's tools that had been carefully selected for safety while still being functional rather than toys. The day the project was completed, Wade held a small ceremony, cutting a ribbon that Emma had tied across the workshop doorway. "I hereby declare the Yates family workshop open for business," he announced solemnly. Samuel's face, when Wade presented him with the child-sized workbench and tools, was a study in complex emotions: surprise, gratitude, a touch of grief for the father who should have been the one to present such a gift, and finally, joy at being so thoroughly accepted in his new family. "Thank you, sir," he said formally, running his fingers over the smooth wood of the bench. "I'll take good care of them." "I know you will," Wade replied, "and I hope you'll call me Wade or—" He hesitated, then continued gently, "or Pa, if you ever feel comfortable with that. But whatever you call me, I'm honored to continue the lessons your father began." Samuel nodded, blinking rapidly. "Thank you, Wade." It was a small step, but an important one the first time Samuel had addressed either of them by name rather than sir or madam. The formal Pa might come later, or it might not, but the use of Wade's given name represented a new level of comfort and acceptance. The first week of September brought the beginning of the school term. Olivia spent the days leading up to it ensuring the children had all necessary supplies and appropriate clothing. Emma, though still too young for formal schooling, insisted on having her own small slate and primer so she could do lessons while her brothers were at school. On the morning of the first day, the entire household was awake earlier than usual. Olivia had prepared a special breakfast, and Wade had polished the wagon to a shine for the important occasion. The boys wore their new shirts and trousers, their hair neatly combed, while Emma insisted on wearing her blue dress with ribbons to see them off. "You'll do wonderfully," Olivia assured the boys as she straightened Samuel's collar. "Miss Abernathy is an excellent teacher and you already know several of the children from church," Samuel nodded seriously. "I'll make sure Daniel pays attention and doesn't talk too much in class." "I won't talk too much," Daniel protested. "Well, not very too much," Wade chuckled. "Just do your best and be respectful, both of you. That's all we ask." The ride to school was filled with last-minute reminders and reassurances. When they arrived at the small schoolhouse, several families were already gathered outside. The Wilson boys waved to Samuel and Daniel, while Miss Abernathy greeted each new student at the door with a warm smile. "Mr. and Mrs. Yates," she acknowledged them, "and these must be your new sons. Welcome to our school, boys." "Thank you, madam," Samuel replied politely, while Daniel simply beamed at being referred to as their son. After a few more instructions and a promise to collect them at day's end, Olivia and Wade returned to the wagon with Emma. The little girl was uncharacteristically quiet on the ride home. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" Olivia asked, noting her pensive expression. "Will they forget about me at school?" Emma asked in a small voice. "Forget about you? Never," Wade assured her immediately. "In fact, I suspect they'll be thinking about you often and telling their new friends all about their clever little sister. And you'll have special time with us while they're gone," Olivia added. "Plus, before you know it, you'll be old enough for school yourself." Emma considered this. "Can I help you bake bread for when they come home, so they know I was thinking about them too?" "That's a lovely idea," Olivia smiled. "We can start as soon as we get back to the ranch." The days fell into a new rhythm with the boys at school. Wade would drive them each morning, then continue to town for supplies or business before collecting them in the afternoon. Olivia and Emma developed their own routines at home, with the little girl helping with simple chores and lessons in the mornings, followed by special activities in the afternoons. By October, the children had been with them for nearly 4 months, and the changes were remarkable. Daniel had become an enthusiastic student, particularly fond of geography and stories about distant places. Samuel excelled in mathematics and spent much of his free time in the workshop, creating increasingly complex wooden items. Emma's vocabulary expanded daily, and she had developed a particular interest in the kitchen garden, helping Olivia harvest the last of the summer vegetables and prepare the beds for winter. More subtle but equally significant were the emotional changes. The children smiled more readily, laughed more freely, and showed increasing comfort in expressing both their needs and their affection. Daniel had been the first to call them Ma and Pa, doing so spontaneously one evening after Wade had spent hours helping him build a kite. Samuel continued to use their given names, but with a warmth and ease that hadn't been present in the beginning. Emma used both sometimes Olivia and Wade, sometimes Ma and Pa, seeming to test how each felt on her tongue. One crisp autumn evening, as Olivia tucked Emma into bed, the child asked unexpectedly, "Is it all right to have 2 mothers and 2 fathers?" Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, considering how best to answer. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Emma's brow furrowed in concentration. "Well, I had a mother and father who died, and now I have you and Wade. So that's 2 mothers and 2 fathers. Is that allowed?" "Of course it's allowed," Olivia assured her. "Love doesn't run out or get divided, it multiplies. Your first mother and father will always be part of you, and Wade and I are honored to continue their work of raising you and loving you." Emma nodded, apparently satisfied with this explanation. "I think my first mother would like you," she said seriously. "She made good bread too." Olivia leaned down to kiss the child's forehead, her heart full. "I think I would have liked her very much as well." As she left Emma's room, Olivia found Wade in the hallway, a tender expression on his face. He had clearly overheard the conversation. "She's right, you know," he said softly as they moved toward their own bedroom. "Margaret Anderson must have been a remarkable woman to have raised such wonderful children. I wish we could have known her and her husband." "In a way, we do know them," Olivia replied. Through Samuel's carpentry skills, through Daniel's curious spirit, through Emma's gentle heart. They live on in their children, Wade nodded, drawing her into his arms, and in how we honor their memory by loving those children as our own. That weekend, the family rode into town for supplies and to attend a harvest festival being held in the town square. The event featured games, music, and food, with proceeds supporting the school. As they approached the festivities, Daniel spotted his friends from class and rushed to join a sack race that was just forming. Samuel, more reserved but increasingly comfortable in social settings, joined a group of boys his age who were testing their skill at a ring toss game. Emma stayed close to Olivia initially, but was eventually coaxed into joining a circle of young children playing a singing game led by Miss Abernathy. Left briefly on their own, Olivia and Wade strolled through the festival, greeting neighbors and enjoying the rare moment of adult conversation. They paused near the refreshment table where Margaret Wilson was serving cider. "Your children are thriving," Margaret observed warmly, handing them each a cup. "It does the heart good to see it." "They're remarkable," Olivia agreed, glancing across the square to where Emma was now laughing delightedly as the children's game reached its climax. "And how are you both adjusting to parenthood?" Margaret asked, her tone genuinely interested rather than prying. Wade smiled, his eyes following Samuel, who was explaining something to a younger boy with patient detail. "It's been the greatest joy of our lives," he said simply. Olivia nodded in agreement, her throat suddenly tight with emotion as she watched Daniel racing toward them, his face flushed with excitement. "Ma, Pa," he called, "I won the sack race, come see my prize." As they allowed themselves to be pulled along to admire the small wooden top Daniel had won, Olivia caught Wade's eye. The look that passed between them contained all they didn't need to say aloud: gratitude for the unexpected path that had brought these children into their lives, wonder at how completely they had filled the emptiness that had once seemed unbearable, and deep contentment with the family they were building together. That night, as the autumn wind blew a gentle rain against the windows of their home, Olivia sat in the front room darning socks while the children engaged in quiet evening activities. Samuel was sketching plans for a Christmas gift he planned to make in the workshop. Daniel was reading a book about explorers that Miss Abernathy had lent him, and Emma was carefully stringing dried berries to make a decorative garland. Wade entered from the kitchen, carrying a tray with mugs of warm cider for everyone. As he distributed the drinks, Olivia was struck by the tableau before her: this family that had formed from separate sorrows, now bound together in comfortable domesticity. She remembered sitting on the porch those months ago, her arms empty and her heart heavy with grief. How different things were now, how full their home and lives had become. Wade settled beside her on the sofa, his hand finding hers as they watched their children, for truly, that was what they had become: engaged in their activities. Emma looked up and caught Olivia's eye, offering a small, sweet smile that spoke volumes about the bond that had formed between them. "I still see the family we dreamed of," Wade whispered, echoing the words he had spoken on that pivotal day on the porch. "It came to us differently than we expected, but it's no less precious for that." Olivia squeezed his hand, overwhelmed with gratitude. "No less precious at all," she agreed. "In fact, I think perhaps more so, because we know exactly how fortunate we are to have found each other." As the rain continued its gentle patter against the windows, the Yates family remained gathered in the warm circle of lamplight, each member contributing to the whole in their own unique way. The home that had once felt too empty now resonated with life, learning, and most importantly, with love that had been born not of blood but of choice, the daily decision to care for one another through whatever challenges life might bring. And in that moment, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that the arms that had once felt so empty would never truly be empty again.